Hello everyone, it's Helen from Journaling Planet, and today we're going to be talking about CRAFTROOM organization. If you're anything like me, you'll have watched a million YouTube videos on CRAFTROOM organization looking for some kind of holy grail of organization for your CRAFTROOM. And often what happens with these videos is that the person in question talks a lot about what a terrible mess their CRAFTROOM is in, and either gives a system that is completely unrealistic to achieve, or doesn't really explain any practical steps on how you could tidy your own CRAFTROOM. This video is neither of those two things. I'm going to give you 5 basic principles to work to in order to clean and tidy your CRAFTROOM on a regular basis so that it doesn't build up and you can keep on top of it. You may not like all of the suggestions that I give you, because some of them require some sacrifices of materials. We'll talk a little bit more about that later and when that might be appropriate. But this is the system that has worked for me. It has been a system I've been working on for some months now, trying to figure out all the different ways in which I need it to work. And it has been a revelation for me. So I hope that there's something in this video that you can take away and practically use in your CRAFTROOM, even if you only employ 1 or 2 of the principles as is right for you. I hope that helps. The one caveat that I'll make on this video is that when I show you snippets from my CRAFTROOM, which is my office, it is a shared office. I share it with my husband, and thus I'm not going to show you every single corner of this room for his privacy. I have offered to tidy his desk on many an occasion. He has turned me down on every single last occasion. So I cannot control what is happening over there on that side of the desk. I can only control what's happening on my desk and in my CRAFTROOM area. I suppose, if anything, it sort of explains that you, even in an imperfect environment, where you can't control everything in that room, you can still have a system that works for you. So here are the 5 principles. Let's get straight into it. Principle number 1 is selectivity. This is one of those that you're probably not going to like so much, because most junk journalers or crafters are hoarders by nature. We see something and we see potential. We see it as a potential material. We see it as a potential mark making tool, whatever it may be. So we cling to it without actually thinking about whether or not we really, really need and want that thing in our space. I have been guilty of this, and I think I've still got some way to go on this. But I have been trying over the last few months to really be discriminating about what I invite into my CRAFTROOM space. And I've also done an audit of all the things already in my CRAFTROOM space and decided what I am going to keep and what I am going to pass on to somebody else who might use it better than I would, quicker than I would. It could sit in a box for years otherwise. We'll talk about giving things away or potentially even doing a destash or selling later. But as a first principle, I think it's time to really take a look at your craft selection that you have, your craft stash, and take each item in turn and decide whether or not it is really something that you want to keep in your crafting space. If you think about the Marie Kondo method, or the KonMari method as it's called, she asks people to look at an object and really meditate on whether or not it brings them joy, if it sparks joy, as she says. Now, I don't know if we really need to go that far, but I do think it's quite an interesting experiment to do. If you pick up something from your stash, does it make you excited? Does it make you think, this is a beautiful piece that I absolutely am desperate to use in a project? Or do you look at it and think, well, I sort of kept that because I thought it might be useful one day? If it's the latter, maybe put it in a different pile to reassess later and hold on to only those things when you hold them. Maybe it's paper, maybe it's mark making tools, maybe it's some other kind of tool like a particular type of paintbrush or sponge, whatever it might be, that when you pick it up, you immediately get excited about using it now, not in 10 years, not in 20 years, but now. You'd love to use it now. So that's number one, selectivity. Doing a whole audit of your craft room is going to take some time. If you're anything like me, you have been hoarding for years and not crafting until quite recently. And so you'll have a backlog of things to assess. Don't be afraid to let things go, because you're probably in a state in your craft room where if you're looking for organization videos, you've probably got too much stuff. I mean, I'm certainly guilty of that. So don't be afraid of potentially putting things in a pile to let it go. It's okay. You have more than enough, I promise you, especially if you hold on to the things that really, really matter to you. So that is principle one. So once you've decided on those things that you're going to keep in your craft room, you can move on to principle two. Principle two is categorization. So that is another thing that you may have seen Marie Kondo use, gathering similar things into the same box or drawer or space, so that you know all of your ink stamps are over here. All of your pens are in this pot over there. All of your stencils are in this folder. You know exactly where they are. So start categorizing things and moving them into particular spaces. On my desk, you'll notice that I have different things in different drawers. So I've got a drawer for my ink stamps. I have a few places for my ink stamps because actually I've got too many. They all, what can I tell you? They all spark joy, and I do use them all. If you've watched my channel for even a couple of videos, it's very rare that I do not get my ink stamps out. So I am using them. They're not just sitting in a box somewhere, but they are in a few different places. But I know where those places are because I've categorized those places. And the same goes for my mark making tools. I know where those are. The same goes for all of my wax seals and my colored pencils and just all those things. I know where they are, and I push them all into the same space. If you do that, then something amazing happens. You're never rooting around in a box or a drawer going, where is that thing? I know I have that thing. I know I have that amazing napkin with the floral design on that I'd like to use for some decoupage. Where is it? You will just know where it is. And that will cut down the length of time it takes you to create a craft project. Half of our time on craft projects is probably spent rooting around for that thing that we thought we had, okay? And we can't remember where we put it. I can only speak from my own experience, but even on videos, you'll have watched me go, oh, where is it? And I've got it on my desk somewhere, but even my desk isn't organized at that point in time. So if I just organize my stash, whether I'm making a video or whether I'm working on my desk, it just makes everything easier. So number 2 is categorization. Make a list of all the things that you're keeping, and then start putting them into categories, and then designate a space. Thinking about designating a space leads us on to principle 3, which is accessibility or visibility. Accessibility and visibility. If something is not within reach or visible to you, the odds are you will not use it. I can only go on what has happened in my own craft room over the years. Things have been stuck in the bottom of a drawer that I never access, or in the back of a cupboard, or in a file folder that I neatly filed on a bookshelf somewhere and then forgot that I ever did that. So I need everything that I use on a regular basis to be visible to me. And as I'm showing you these snippets of my craft room, hopefully you can see that things like magazines and publications are visibly sitting in a basket, an open basket, where I can see what is happening and what's in there. So think about using clear plastic wallets to store things. Think about things like baskets that are open. Think about things like desk tidies, desk organization caddies, where everything is visible to you. Think about drawer organization caddies as well, where you've got all the different sections sort of flat out in the drawer, and you can put all your washi tapes in, which is what I do with the one in my middle drawer. All my washi tapes are in there. So think about this. How can you make everything visible to you and accessible to you? If you do that, you will double, maybe even triple your chances of you actually using the things that you have bought. And I think as soon as you took it away somewhere and you forget where you put it, that's the moment where it's probably just not going to get used, not for a very, very long time. So accessibility and visibility. Another aspect of placement in your craft room is principle 4, which is containment. And I'm still working on this one. Okay, if you take a look at my fabric and ribbon, you can see that is actually way above the top of that basket. Something there has gone wrong. And the something that's got wrong is I haven't thought about the fact that when I bought some more fabric, I don't actually have room for any more fabric. Even though I love that piece of fabric that I've just seen, as it happens, I've got lots of fabric and ribbon sitting in the basket at home, waiting to be used. And the reason that that has happened is that I've only just come up with this system. And so I actually had more fabric that could really fit in that basket. But I was determined that my fabric was going to fit into that basket. It was going to be contained in that basket. And if once I've whittled it down to fit properly in that basket, I'm not allowed to buy any more until I've got it under control and really more contained within that space. I have an ink stamp and ink pad drawer in my desk, and really that is for containing ink pads primarily, and there's a couple of my ink stamps in there. But it is also a containment space, and that means if I fill that with ink pads, I am not allowed to then go out and just buy more ink pads. Where am I going to put them? That is my ink pad drawer. If it's full, there's no more room. Need to use what I've got before I buy anything else. I've found this one probably the most useful. If I'm looking at something that I want to buy, and I think about the fact that my paper basket is overflowing pretty much, it's full, there's no more space. You know, if I think about my vintage books box, that's full. There's no more space in there. If I want to get something else, I really need to use those things first, and then I can go back and, you know, purchase something else if I want to. But there's no point in overcrowding my creative space with things that I can't actually fit into it, because what's going to happen then is my creative space is going to become overcrowded. I'm not going to want to work in there, and things will just start to build up, pile up, because they're sitting there. I'm not doing any crafting, and I keep buying things that I'm just not using. It's a real waste, and it's a shame. It's unnecessary, and actually it's quite embarrassing, because it sort of smacks of greed and sort of commercial interest, if you like. It sort of suggests that I'm the kind of person who just wants to go out shopping rather than to actually craft. And that's not true. It's not a fair reflection of who I am and what I want to do with this work. So, containment. You choose a space for a particular category, be it your paintbrushes, be it your papers, be it your fabrics. You choose a contained space, and you can only have what fits into that contained space. And if you are overflowing, then you must whittle it down before you buy any more. If you do that, you can never outgrow the space you have, because you will always keep it in that contained space. This, particularly with fabric, has been an amazing revelation for me, because yes, that fabric basket is slightly overflowing at the minute, but I know, I can see on the horizon, it's not going to be long before it's not, before that will be under control. Before this, there was fabric scattered all over my craft room. It was an absolute mess, and I wasn't using it because I couldn't find anything. So that containment strategy has really helped me know that I've got one space to go to look for fabric, have a nice look through, figure out what I might want to use, be it for a video or in my personal crafting time, make a selection, take it off and use that material. Whereas before, I wouldn't have been able to find anything. I wouldn't have known what I was looking for. And in fact, I might have gone out and bought something new because I couldn't find something that I already owned. So that's another reason to actually go ahead and create that containment space. You can easily find things, and thus you won't go out and buy duplicates of things you already have just because you couldn't find it. I hope that makes sense. So the last one I'm going to come to in terms of principles, number 5, is generosity. If we've got too much stuff for our space, then we don't have to hold on to it all. And you don't have to spend money to be generous either. There are ways of giving away what you have for free. So for example, I have a mailing list that lots of people have joined. Thank you. I did think it would just be my mum, so it's really nice that it's not. And I send out a monthly email, and in a couple of those emails I've offered to send people some happy mail. And I said, you know, I'll fill an envelope full of junk journaling things, and you can just enjoy them. I'll pay the postage, it's fine, it's not, you know, it's not outrageous. And I'd really like people who need this material to use it, to have it and to use it. Of course, got quite a few replies to that email, and it all got sent off and bundled off, and I'm waiting for people to receive it now after the postal strikes that we've had in the UK in December. Still waiting for people to receive those, but at some bright day in January they're going to go to their post box and they're going to find this envelope stuffed with lovely things that I loved. I really did like them, and that's why I had them. But somebody else, will get to use and enjoy them, and I will get to use and enjoy the things that I decided I really couldn't live without, the things that I selected to be in my creative space. So that's one thing that I did. But what if you don't have a mailing list? Okay, what if you also can't afford to post loads of things around the world? Well, there will be local groups, who would benefit from craft materials. Reach out to the people in your community, find out if there's an art group or a craft group who would like some materials to use. Perhaps a group of people who don't have much money or don't have much means, and you could donate a beautiful package to them full of things that would get them really excited about crafting and being creative and being artistic. And you've now got all this space in your craft room to be free and creative, and they have got something they really want, which is the materials they need to express themselves. If you're thinking, oh, I'm not sure there is a group like that in my area, then another thing you can do is you can go onto forums or onto social media and offer to post things to people if they will pay the postage. If you are a new crafter and you don't have much in your stash, it's way cheaper to pay, $10 or $20 for a huge envelope stuffed with wonderful materials than it is to individually search for all of that on the internet, price it all up, buy it, wait for the delivery, yada, yada, yada. If you really don't feel you can afford to do that, of course, you can do a destash. You can get on a forum or get on social media and say, look, I can't afford to give this away. I wish I could, but I can't afford to just give this away. However, I will send you a big stash of things for a set price. So you get a bit of your money back for the things you spent over the years, and that person still gets a bargain because they wouldn't normally get that amount of material for that price. So you could just set, a very nice basic price plus postage to send it out to people. And I've seen this done on YouTube channels, but you don't have to have one. You could go onto Facebook, or you could go onto a forum, or you could go onto some other form of social media and just offer a giveaway or a destash and do it that way. So thinking about these kind of things, who you could give away to, or who you could give away to for a very low price so that they got a bargain and you got some space freed up in your craft room. I loved sending off those envelopes for the Happy Mail, and I will 100% do it again next year. At some point when I've got time, I will send out a mailing list email, and I will let people know that if they send me their mail address, that I will send them out a bundle, and hopefully it'll be something that they really enjoy. And I'll only put things in there that I know people are likely to use, but things that I really won't get around to using because I just hoarded for too long. Anyone who's watched this channel for a while knows that I hoarded for years and never had the confidence to do art. I just didn't think I could be an artist. And then after about a decade, slightly more of that, finally found junk journaling, and the pressure was just completely taken off me because nothing had to be perfect. I could create something, and if it didn't look 100% perfect, it did not matter. It just was an expression. It was fun. It was relaxing. The community was warm, and I'll be forever grateful that I found it, because since I did, my artistic confidence has only grown and grown and grown. Even though not everything that I make turns out perfectly, I don't worry about it. I just move on to the next thing. And sometimes it works out even better than I ever imagined. So those are the 5 principles I'd like to suggest for your craft room organization. They have been working brilliantly for me. Of course, you might want to make some adjustments. You might want to make some additions, some other things that you're going to keep to in order to keep your craft room under control. But I really do think that these 5 principles are fairly, firstly, straightforward to understand, but secondly, things that you could start implementing one at a time. So it won't take you forever to do it. It'll take you a little bit of time, but any organization system does. So you could do it one at a time. You could start by, doing the whole audit and then gradually bring in the other things. I'd love to hear your comments on this because this is something that had worked really well for me. And I'd really like to know what you think of it. If you feel like it's something you could implement, if you've got a great craft room organisation scheme going on in your house and you'd like to share it, please do, because everyone's going to work slightly differently. These are just the 5 things that have worked for me and that I really genuinely think could work for you too. Thank you so much for everything that you do in terms of supporting this channel. I will be making plenty more videos in 2023 and I look forward to all the interaction. I hope you've enjoyed this video and it's given you some things to think about. I look forward to seeing you next time.